My childhood was very challenging because in hindsight, I would say that all of my two siblings and my parents would have been labeled with a mental illness today. Fast forward a couple of years when I started working, well, first in a small company and then mostly after that in the corporate world. And what I noticed, and actually that is what I just say about upgrading, optimizing your brain, is that so many people can do and be much more than what they're told. And basically it takes courage because anything new is hard. When you start learning to bike, your first bike, it's not easy. When you learn how to drive a car, it's not easy. When you start horse riding, it's not easy. But we understand that you need to, well, basically keep your body busy and keep your because otherwise, after the age of 30, your strength, your mobility, everything, first slowly, it starts to decline. That is not something wrong with you, but that's a normal process if you do nothing.
What is one message that you'd like to share with the world?
Live your own life.
Welcome back to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast. We have an amazing guest today, Arnold Beekes, who's joining us all the way from Romania. And Arnold enables people to move from fitting in to flying out. He shares that he grew up in an environment of extreme fitting in. The first 20 years in technology and organizational leadership, then 20 years in psychology and personal leadership. The next 20 years, he intends to continue helping others with brain fitness. Arnold enables professionals, managers, and entrepreneurs to make a difference. Your uniqueness makes a difference. Upgrade your brain. Let's welcome Arnold to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast. Welcome, Arnold.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anthony. I'm happy to be here.
Tell us a little bit about what brain fitness is.
Well, most people understand what body fitness is that, that is actually something new. I would say it's 30 years ago. Before that, it didn't exist, but now people understand that you need to exercise, you need to move, you need to keep your body healthy, you need to keep your body in shape. It doesn't have to be that you go to a gym. It can also be that you play tennis, that you go swimming, that you go walk your dog, that you do some mobility and strength exercises at home. But we understand that you need to, well, basically keep your body busy and keep your because otherwise, after the age of 30, your strength, your mobility, everything, first slowly, it starts to decline.
Mm.
That is not something wrong with you, but that's a normal process if you do nothing.
Mm.
The same is true for your brain. After the age of 30, your brain first slowly starts to degrade, to decline. And once you get older, when you get in your 70s and 80s, it starts to decline more rapidly. That is exactly the same as with your body. That is not necessary. But you need to work on it.
Mm.
That is why I introduced brain fitness. And brain fitness is both for a prevention point of view, which I kind of just said, but also for an optimization point of view. I developed a training to help you to upgrade your brain because I believe that everybody can do and be much more than what we're told.
Mm. 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 So, Arnold, thank you for sharing that. Would you tell us a little bit about your journey in life? Like, tell us where you originally came from, or where you're born, and what was your journey leading up to this point like?
I I have the Dutch nationality, so I was born in the Netherlands. I grew up in the Netherlands. Uh, my childhood was very challenging because in hindsight, but well, obviously I'm an old guy. I would say that all of my two siblings and my parents would have been labeled with a mental illness today. But it wasn't, because we're talking about many, many years ago. So
Mm,
that was very challenging growing up, especially, well, in the intro, you already mentioned that I grew up in extreme fitting in. My father was a military officer, and at home, I would say he was worse than at work. So
mm,
that, that made it very, very challenging. So my mother had depression, I had a sister with depression and was epileptic, a brother with anger issues who ran away. So it was not an easy childhood.
mm,
Fast forward a couple of years, when I started working. I started working, well, first in a small company, and then mostly after that in the corporate world. And what I noticed, and actually that is what I just say about upgrading, optimizing your brain, is that so many people can do and be much more than what they're told. Yeah,
mm,
I quickly had management roles. I managed a group of 10 people up to 6,000 people. And what I noticed is that if you give people confidence, if you
mm,
trust them, if
mm,
you give them compliments, if you encourage them, people are like, I didn't know I could do that. And that's basically true for anyone. It doesn't mean you need to have a university degree. I had folks who had only prior, well, I think only high school. So it's like, if you're kind and nice to people and
mm,
trust them, they could grow. So I obviously, because of that, I grew in the hierarchy of big companies, because I could work very well with people.
mm, mm,
And that was the growing of people. And then there, as you're very aware yourself, there were restructurings, and I lost my job. So I decided to create my own job and become an entrepreneur,
mm,
which was very, very challenging.
mm,
Which is strange, because I was very successful in the corporate world. And all the things I tried, it didn't work, didn't get clients. And I was like, so I started doubting myself. And I'm like, what did I do wrong? Or maybe I should try and find a job, which didn't work out. Well, which I tried as well. But it's like, I had at a young age very high level responsibilities. So
mm,
that means I don't easily fit in, and what they don't say, but what you feel is they're afraid that I will take the job of the guy who's hiring me. And so that didn't work, and I'm like, what should I do? Huh? And that is at that point in time where I realized, Anthony, that a lot of the stuff, and later on I would say almost all of the stuff we're taught, is just not true.
mm. Yeah,
And that we are unique beings.
we are.
And
Yep.
that's something which works for me doesn't work for Anthony, and the other way around. And that's got nothing to do that you're a failure or you're not good enough. It's got to do with the fact that you are unique.
Mm, yeah. And yeah, exactly. I've been through the same experiences myself. Yeah.
And then I started. Then there was a big moment, which was, well, I'll call it C19, or otherwise your podcast will be blocked. But it's like, where I realized that a lot of the stuff what we're being told. At first, I thought it was only around health, but it's around business. It's around the climate. It's around everything. That basically everything of what we're told is not true, and
mm,
that is why I call this "die before you die." But we will go into that later, I assume. But it's that brings me to where I am today, is to help people use their brain from their unique point of view.
mm.
That is why I call it unleash your uniqueness. You have, because we're all in straitjackets, so you have to unleash it. You have to remove the straitjackets,
Yeah,
and then you got to learn to use your uniqueness.
yeah. And how do you tap in once you release or unleash that the straitjackets? How do you tap into the uniqueness of that person to bring out the, to be able to train them to use their uniqueness?
Yeah, so obviously, I would say all people, nobody's used to answering that question. Is like, Anthony, what is your uniqueness? Yeah? Maria, what is your uniqueness? Pete, what is your uniqueness? We don't get asked that question.
Mm,
So it is something like, what? Huh? Why do we react? Because we're all used to only getting criticism
yeah.
and say, yeah,
Mm,
Anthony, that's not good. Arnold, that's not good. That should have been done better. That's a mistake. That's a failure. That's this, that's this. So asking things from a positive point of view, what's your uniqueness?
mm,
Everybody is unique. Your brain structure, your body, your muscles, your experience. There's nobody in the whole wide world like Anthony.
mm.
So, Anthony, share with me your uniqueness. I don't mean you need to do it now. Yeah, but it's like but it's like, huh? I'm only used to focus on my mistakes, on my failures, on my faults.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And we also taught that we have to do everything the same way as and think the same way as everyone else. But
Exactly. Yeah.
but how can we do that when we're unique beings, right?
Yeah. And I think that is the essence of our problems. We are,
Mm,
we are taught I call it sameness. Yeah, we have to be the same. Yeah,
same,
we have
yeah.
to eat the same food, wear the same clothes. Yeah, watch the same programs on TV, and everything the same.
Mm,
But that creates a friction. Like, uh, but I'm different. I'm unique. I think that is a large cause of all the mental disorders, mental illness, what we see in the world.
yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. So let's talking about mental illness. Why is mental illness exploding? Why is it getting worse?
Yes, there was just last month a special series in the Financial Times around it, so that shows that it is not a topic where you don't hear about, or it's an exception. Is like, it has become now maybe even the biggest epidemic in the world.
Mm,
Why is that? I have four main reasons. Number one is the smartphone and social media.
mhm.
There's a lot of evidence and research that it already starts to impact you as a child.
Yeah,
They're folks in their in their teens, like they're 7, 8 years old. I saw, I don't know how old they were, 6, 7, whatever, and the mother gives them a phone to play with. So it's been proven that that has a negative impact on your growth and your development and your health.
yeah. because they're going to start comparing themselves to others and going, why am I not like this? This is how I have to be, and then it causes a lot of dis-ease in their body, doesn't it? And in
Yeah,
the
that
mind.
that is that drive for sameness again is like, or like, I want to have that house and that wife and that car and like the other one, and I don't have it, so I'm a failure. Huh?
Mm,
And when they look at the pictures, as well, especially for women, it's like, oh, they look so beautiful. Well, they don't know that a lot of these pictures are filtered and they're retouched and everything.
Photoshop. Yeah.
And and but also a lot of the news or pictures, it's all about misery. It's about war. It's about threats. It's about
Mm,
the future things falling apart. So it's like, if, especially when you're young, well, it's at any age, but especially young, it's like, what does the future look like for me? Huh? So very, very negative impact.
mm,
And because it's set up to in an addictive way, it means that there are folks who are 10 hours per day on the phone. So,
mm,
so that has a negative impact. The other one is, I would say, the increased conditioning, the increased way how our brain is being influenced by the weather, the food, the news, the media, the everything. Literally, and it's not my word. It's actually from, I read it in a presentation from the American Army, is that they call the brain the new battlescape.
mm,
So everything is touched in moving your brain. It's like, but think also about the electromagnetic radiation. Hmm?
mm-hmm.
The food, the rain, the water, everything is impact, but that goes into your body and goes into your brain. A third reason is, it's a difficult word for me to pronounce, but it's called the pathologizing, the medicalizing of emotions.
Mm,
The moment a kid is a bit busy and a bit distracted, it's like, oh, you got ADHD, you got to go to the doctor, you got to get pills, and then you will calm down. Well, yeah, that's just a bit busy. And as a kid sitting, what's it, 6, 7, 8 hours a day in a schoolroom, that's not healthy.
no.
And especially, I just watched a video. It's about Jonathan Haidt, who writes. It's a professor who writes about childhood and mental illness and uses of the phone. He mentioned that we've lost in childhood the playhood. We used to go,
Yeah.
when I was young. The only thing where you go is you could go outside and do some sports or go with your friends to the woods and
Yeah. And play.
secretly light a fire or whatever. Yes, yes. Yeah, play hide and seek, and those are the things you would do when you were young.
Yeah.
Now they don't go outside and they just watch their phone. So
Mm, mm,
it has a huge negatively input, and so that means, well, you get ADHD and whatever. But also, when you look at, let's say, when you're an average looking girl, when you look at all the pictures on Facebook and Instagram and whatever, you're like, oh, I'm ugly. Yeah. Nobody will
mm,
marry me. I won't have kids. I won't have a family. Or whatever. Like, so they get depressed.
mm-hmm.
Or they get anxious about the future. It's like, oh, it's climate change and the world is falling apart and there will be no food and there will be heat waves and there will be this and there will be that. All of those things are not mental illness,
mm,
but they are labeled as mental illness, and they put you on under medicine, and the
yeah,
medicine just numbs you down, and then that medicine creates a negative side effect, and then for the side effect you get an extra medicine which create new side effects, and then you get another medicine. And that means that people have 5, 6, 7 different medicine all at the same time, which all of them don't work. But the reason is basically you feel more lousy.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I saw my daughter. Um, this was about 2 years ago. She was diagnosed with ADHD, and she was on some medication for a very for a short period of time, and it completely changed her as a person. She she wasn't herself anymore, you know. And I mean, now she's off it now, and she just she just is who she is, you know. And yeah, like we rely so much on these pharmaceutical drugs to when a lot of it is really uh, anxiety caused by just being stuck in the house, being on devices, watching what other people are doing, and comparing yourself to that, and then wondering why, you know, and then saying, "Oh, why am I not like that?" Or, and I guess everyone wants to fit in, right? As what we've been talking about is fitting in. Um, but it's not about fitting in, it's about being yourself,
Yeah, and expressing your uniqueness. So that
your
is why
uniqueness.
that sameness, which is related to fitting in, is causing so much problems.
Yeah.
Huh?
Mm,
And it becomes naturally as a kid. When I grew up, when I went to primary school, it was in the 60s, 70s. In the 60s, there were the student protests in Paris. It was very famous, and then the students, they had long hair, and they wore jeans. So all my schoolmates were wearing jeans, and the men, they had long hair. Huh?
mm.
But again, I had my father who said, "You need to have this haircut, and you're not getting any jeans."
Yeah.
That makes you feel very lonely.
Yeah. Especially
And it
without
makes you feel
jeans.
lonely and stupid and not seen, not heard, not accepted. Yeah?
Yeah.
Because everything is pushed towards you got to be the same as everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well, there were pictures of my classmates. Most of the men they had hair like here, yeah? And I was like this. It's like that has an impact. Yeah. So, but it's also strange is that, well, number one, that it couldn't be my own choice. That was same. But the other thing is like there's this urge to fit in, to be the same as everybody else, because otherwise you
Mm,
feel left out.
mm.
Whereas I think the whole education system should help you to express your uniqueness.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And what do you feel could be done to be able to get to that point? How could we as a collective stand for making a change in the school system?
It is realizing that a couple of things. The main thing is the school system itself, the only goal is to create obedient people who work on an assembly line. That is
Mm,
why the education system was set up in the first place. It started
mm,
around the 1850s. Before
mm-hmm,
that, there were no classes and all these things didn't exist. But around the 1850s, it was like we're sitting in classroom in neat rows and like the military rows, and so you had to be obedient, and you had to know you had to be at the assembly line. You do exactly what you're told.
Mm.
But that was the purpose, the intention of the education system. That hasn't changed. So what you're taught and how you're taught is today is exactly the same as when it started almost 200 years ago.
Mm.
So that whole system doesn't fit anymore because the assembly line is now mostly done by robots. So you need total different skills, knowledge, abilities, mindset,
Mm-hmm.
be different than what you're taught. So
Yeah.
there's this huge mismatch between what the goal is of the education system and what is required in today's world.
Mm.
So that is why you also have to realize that it's based on creating obedience, it's based on old knowledge which is not working. So that means but I don't know about your country, but for instance, in a lot of countries, homeschooling has become it's not an exception anymore. So
Mm.
it's like, I don't let my children be in a system which is outdated. I'm going to do it myself. So homeschooling is a very big thing. Yeah?
Mm. How do people who are in the workforce manage homeschooling? Like, if they're doing if they're working in a job 9 to 5, how can how could they do homeschooling?
Well, that's got to do with their partners as well, but there are multiple families who do that, so you could share the work, I guess. Yeah,
Mm. Mm.
yeah. It's like if you get a neighbor or someone in the street who's also doing, they might be able to help you. Huh? And still, you get the weekend, and still you get some evening time. So it's it's not easy, but it can be done.
Yeah. 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 So, how does tell us a bit more bit about how the brain fitness can help people through the challenges of mental illness and mental wellness.
Well, a, a couple of things. What I say that people can do. I would say number one is what most people don't expect, but what I say is be kind to yourself.
Mm. Yeah.
That seems very obvious, but I think, Anthony, you will recognize we have an inner voice which we call literally the inner critic.
Hmm.
That voice is most of the time not nice.
No, we've got to
Not
train
nice
it.
at all. Eh?
No, 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 absolutely.
That is ingrained because of this fitting in system, because it's always focused on the negative point and criticizing. Eh? So it's learned behavior, it's not natural behavior.
No.
But if you start being a little bit kind to yourself,
Mm.
say, hey, Anthony, that interview you just did, that went smooth. And you prepared well, very well done, Anthony. And you do this. Yeah.
Mm.
Give a tap on your shoulder and say, that's well done.
Mm. Mm. Celebrating your wins, right? And making sure
Yeah,
that
but
you give
that is
yourself.
even too big. It's like, it doesn't have to be a win, but it can be just like for your work, your effort.
Mm.
Your
Mm.
yeah, so you put in your effort. You did
Mm.
everything you could. Hmm? Yeah, and it's not like, oh, this podcast should have 50,000 views and I only have 48,000, so I'm a failure, whatever. No, you did everything you could.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a nice conversation, and there are 5 people who love it. Great.
Change 5 people's lives.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not about the followers or the likes and the plays. It's
No.
how much impact am I creating in the world?
Yeah, but again, it starts with one person at a time.
One person at a time. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So the first thing is be kind to yourself
Mm.
all the time.
Yeah.
The second one, what I recommend is help others.
Hmm.
And helping
What?
others can be that helping your neighbor with cutting the grass or putting the garbage outside, or like you're doing with your podcast and your coaching and consulting, helping others. But it can also be like in the last 8 years, I took care of my mother with dementia and Parkinson, and there were even professional help coming to put her in bed, out of bed, put her under the shower, dress her, put on her clothes, which all the things she couldn't do herself anymore. So that is a profession which helps other people. It doesn't have high
Mm.
status,
Mm.
but it's extremely valuable. It gives elderly people, prepare them some food. Yeah, put them under the shower. It helps them to get from one floor to the other floor. It's like that is helping other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Why is it so important to help other people, Arnold?
Well, number one, other people need help. So, but it also it gives yourself a good feeling. It
Mm.
gives yourself a feeling of like I matter.
Mm.
I'm valuable.
Mm.
There's something I can contribute to the world.
Yeah.
And even your world can be just your street or your city or your community. It doesn't have to be big, but it's like, wow, there are some people happy that I'm coming to help them.
Mm.
Or
Mm.
even talk to them. Most people and most elderly people, well, I would say almost all people, they're lonely. So when you reach out to them and say, let's have a cup of tea and can we have a chat?
Yeah. Yeah.
That is not. Yeah.
That is. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So first of all, is be kind to yourself.
The second one is help others, and the
Help.
third one is I call it diverge and converge. Those are a bit difficult terminologies. Diverge means follow your curiosity. Yeah,
Mm.
diverge is like go all out. It's like don't think it's like am I going to use this in my work and how relevant is this for this or whatever. No, it's like I'm interested in butterflies.
Mm.
Let's watch videos around butterflies, buy a book about butterflies, go to a botanical garden where they have butterflies. It's like you can study it, whatever. And it doesn't have to be a goal or a purpose or whatever. It's like, hey, I love butterflies.
Mm. Mm.
Huh?
Yeah.
And for butterflies, you can fill in any topic. Huh? The convert part is also being, is create something.
Mm.
And create can be a drawing. It can be some music. It can be a song. It can be create your own business.
Mm.
So
Mm.
it's like or create new friends,
Mm-hmm.
create a new environment. like I did. I lived in the Netherlands, but I'm now a year in Romania. I tell you, starting to live in a total new environment where you've never been, you don't speak the language, you don't know the people, that is tremendous. It's a challenge, but it helps you to grow.
Mm. Yeah. Mm. So why is change so hard? You know, when we people like obviously to grow, you've got to go through change, right, in your life because that's the only way we're going to grow and learn things. So why do you feel that change is so hard for people?
There are what I call barriers to change.
Mm.
They are, I think they're built into us because the system doesn't want us to change.
Mm.
Why does the system not want us to change? Because for the first 20 years of your life, they put in all the time and effort to make you this obedient worker.
Mm.
So they're not interested in you growing and changing and into someone else because they're like, no, I put in all the effort in 20 years to make you an obedient slave. So
Mm.
we don't want you to change. So that's why I think it's built into us. It's part of the design. So
It's the
what are
programming. Mm.
the main, sorry?
I was just going to say it's the programming that we've been conditioned with.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not that well, well, I'm an exception mostly, but it's like most, if not all, people don't like change. They don't like to change. They like other people to change. Huh?
Mm.
And why is that? What is built in? And I could say three things. Number one, there's this built-in resistance. It's like,
Mm.
well, let's take the example you want to start homeschooling your daughter.
Mm.
Yeah, but I'm just setting up my business and I don't have time. And that's resistance.
Hmm.
Hmm?
Yeah.
There's always the resistance. But the key thing is just do it anyway. That resistance is natural because, like I said, it's the built in barrier to change.
Yeah.
Hmm? Hmm? But you have to do it anyway. The second one is for a lot of people, there's this built in laziness.
Mm.
Hmm? Most people, in essence, are lazy. Let me give you a story about what I saw in the Netherlands. The Netherlands is a flat country,
Hmm.
so I think we have the most bikes per number of inhabitants in the world. Yeah? So most grown up they have at least two bikes. It's like everybody's biking. Yeah, you're biking to school, you're biking to your work, you're biking to the train station, you're biking to go shopping. So we're always biking. Until a few years ago, they introduced electric bikes.
Mm.
And electric bikes means, well, in essence, there's less effort required from you, the biker. So it's more easy. I think 70, 80% of the people start buying these electric bikes. And they're very expensive, by the way. Why is
Mm.
that? Because people are lazy.
Yeah.
Why is, and I'm seeing that here as well, not the biking because it's kind of impossible because it's extremely hilly here, but like um, with the home delivery of food, yeah? Already prepared food, whether it's a hamburger or a meal or, well, you can get anything, someone will go and deliver it at your door.
Yeah.
That's laziness.
Mm. Yeah. There was none of that back in the days. You had to go in if you wanted to go
It
and get
didn't
food.
exist. It didn't exist. Yeah.
No.
And the only thing you could get was go to the grocery and find the vegetables which were in season. Yeah? Now you can buy, for instance, you go to the supermarket and you can buy strawberries all year round. But it used to be, when I grew up, strawberries were there only in May, June in the Netherlands. And it's like, and the rest of the year, there were no strawberry. Yeah, so everything has become more easy, it's more challenged, but it's like, but it feeds your laziness.
Mm, mm,
But the third one, Anthony, I would like to address is ego.
mm,
Ego means my identity, my position is like, yeah, but if I don't take that job or continue with my job where I was a high level manager and now I don't have it anymore, it's like, what about this position? And I have to say to my friend, yes, I started my own business, but I have two clients at the moment and I can barely make it out. And so it's ego which is preventing you to change. Yeah? But it's also ego like, let's take young women again. It's like they dress the same. They here the girls, the young women, they put on a lot of makeup. Yeah, on their face, makeup, lipstick. When I go to a drugstore, there's always a line with young girls.
mm.
And that's any day you come there. They're standing in line because they got to put some stuff on their face. And I'm like, they're just teenagers at the beginning of their 20s and they have that stuff. But that's ego is like, I want to look good.
Yeah. My daughter's 10 and she's putting on makeup already.
Wow. Wow. Huh? Yeah. But that
Yeah.
is partly ego. It's partly the drive for sameness,
Yeah.
but it's
It is.
partly also ego. It's like, whoa, I want to look good. Huh?
Mm,
So those are built-in barriers to change. Once you know that, you can still change
mm.
because you know there will be resistance, but you continue. You know there's laziness, but it's like, hey, I start creating a discipline. I start creating
Yeah.
a practice. I start creating something which I do every day. Yeah. And
Mm.
once you do it every day, it becomes easy.
Yes.
And your ego is something which you can change because in the end, it all doesn't matter. It like we're all going to die sooner or later. And it doesn't matter whether you're a very famous person or whatever. In a couple of years, they're all forgotten about you. Yeah?
Yeah.
So it is about my life and making the best of my life for me and not for other people.
Yeah. It's about the legacy that you want to leave behind, right?
Yeah, but even that is not so important because
Yeah.
you won't notice it. Yeah. So,
No, no.
and even like if I well, let me give two examples. If I ask people in the Netherlands and say, Balkenende, he used to be a prime minister for a couple of years in the Netherlands, and everybody's like, never heard about the guy. Hmm? That is a prime minister, which is a high level status position, and people have no clue. Hmm? Sports. I like football, what a lot of countries they call soccer, but it's the European football. Yeah. Years ago, when I grew up, and my favorite team is Ajax from the Netherlands, and their star player was a guy called Johan Cruyff. Have you ever heard about him?
No.
You see, at one point in time, he was the best football player in the world. He was like what Ronaldo and Messi are now.
Mm.
So he was the best guy in the world. Everybody knew Johan Cruyff. Now, when I say, well, I like football, have you seen Johan Guy? Who's that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's nice if you leave something behind which people can use, whatever. But people will forget you anyway.
Mm, mm, yeah.
I
Yeah.
hope that after I die, that people will continue with brain fitness, but nobody will say, "Yeah, it was Arnold Beekes who introduced that." I don't care. The only thing I care is that people do body fitness and they do brain fitness.
Mm, mm, yeah.
Otherwise, it becomes ego.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't care at all whether they know my name or not. It's like I just hope that many, many more people will make it a daily practice to work on their brain fitness.
Mm, mm. And how easy is it to do brain fitness? Like people might go, well, how do I even
It is
start?
it is like with everything is to create a practice, a habit out of it.
Mm,
And then it's easy. And if you do it every day, and it changes every day, it's like because for instance, you want to learn something new, you want to learn a new behavior. For instance, you want to learn to be kind to yourself. So
mm,
I developed a process which is just basically it's a simple document where you ask yourself questions, and in that document you help yourself to focus. Is like you read it, for instance, in the morning, Anthony, and you're like, oh, I need to be kind to myself today.
mm,
If you don't write it out on that piece of paper, whatever, I tell you, you will forget it.
yeah. So you've got to make it intentional and make it into a routine that you're going to be able to follow every
Yeah,
single day.
but
Mm,
but again, once it has become a integral part of you, you can replace it with something else.
mm,
Yeah? In that way, you continue to challenge yourself and you continue to grow.
yeah. And that's where the habit stacking comes in, where you learn something, it becomes part of you, second nature, your subconscious knows about it, it's programmed, and then you stack another habit on top and keep doing that, right?
Yeah, and then you don't need to think about it because it's the other way around. When you don't do it, you miss it.
Mm, mm. And what would be the steps? Like, I mean, we've talked about the key elements of that. Uh, with your clients, what do you recommend them when they first start off? What do you recommend them doing on a daily basis?
Well, it's a couple of questions which you're doing is like, how did you sleep? Were you kind to yourself? What did you learn? How did you grow?
Mm,
What are you curious about? Um, just simple questions like that. Huh? And try to follow, like I said, that converge and diverge is like, oh, today I'm going to look for a magazine about butterflies.
mm,
Huh?
yeah.
Or I'm going to check out how much work is involved in homeschooling my daughter.
Mm, mm, yeah. Do you feel that because people have got so many things going on in their lives that one they probably find it hard to prioritize things in their life and then keep intentional and keep doing those things on a consistent basis.
Well, the second part is what we discussed about the habit forming.
Mm,
The first part is like, yes, everybody's busy,
mm,
but a lot of the busyness is in bullshit work and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Whether you're busy because you want to each 5 minutes check your Facebook timeline. That's being busy. Yeah, I got to check my Facebook. Well, you don't. Yeah. It's like we're watching TV. We're on the screens all the time. But it's like no, you can do different things. And
mm,
even, for instance, a lot of people drink alcohol.
mm,
Hmm? Because they drink alcohol, they fall asleep like, well, not real sleep, but it's kind of a coma, whatever, and they need their sleep, whatever. If you stop drinking, you can sleep half an hour less, and in that half an hour, you can do all the brain fitness stuff which you need.
mm, mm, mm. Could you share with us an example of a client that you've worked with that's started this journey, and and what uh, what how it's helped that person?
Well, I on a co-working space, I met a person, a man who was working for a very small company,
Mm,
and his boss was also at that. He was working with his boss at the same time at the table in the co-working space, and I saw that the boss was treating him not nice, and I saw that he always, well, regularly came up with, let's do this, or we can do this smarter, or we can do it in every way, and always was, nope, 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 we're not going to do it. Huh?
mm,
And I saw him that he was frustrated because he can hear stuff. Yes.
mm-hmm,
So I started talking with him, and I realized like he's totally in a cage.
mm,
And it's sad because he's socially a very nice guy, a very kind guy, but his boss was always, no, 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 not good. Huh? So I started talking with him, and he started working from fitting in to flying out. And now it's incredible. It's totally incredible. He's got together with a partner. He's got his own company, and he's very successful.
mm,
He's having clients all over the world. I he's becoming a friend now, so I talk with him every week, and it's like when you talk with him now, and when you would see him talking with his boss, he's like he's a completely different person.
mm,
He has much more self confidence. He's much more expressing himself. He does things which he had never done before, and totally amazing.
mm, mm. Yeah, yeah, that's great. And let's look at what happens when you don't do brain fitness. I mean, can that lead to things like dementia and Alzheimer's and
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, so it will be all of those aging diseases,
mm-hmm,
especially the ones you just mentioned.
yeah,
Um, but it's also like if you don't do strength training. My mother, when she was in her 80s, she couldn't open a jar of jam because she had no strength.
mm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm,
So it's your brain, it's your body, it all starts to decline, which is not necessary because it's been proven that at least 90%, if you keep on using your brain in a challenging way, that dementia will not occur.
mm, mm. So the key is to keep your brain, keep learning, keep applying yourself, keep doing things, not only
Yeah, it's
physically.
purpose, complexity, and challenge. Yeah?
Mm, mm, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Now, you mentioned something earlier around what is die before you die. Tell us
Yeah.
more about that. What is die before you die?
It's not a definition for me because the Greeks and the Romans already used that.
Mm,
Hmm? And they had a whole procedure around that. But the basic thing means is die for your old self.
yeah.
Die for your old self is like being an obedient employee in a corporate environment or a small and
Mm,
medium it doesn't matter, and start to work for yourself, start to express your uniqueness. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, I work on my things. So that is nice, because what's happening with a lot of people, and is most likely what you heard, that there has been research done by a nurse in a hospice in Australia. And she worked in a hospital, and she, over time, she had asked the patient there, is like, what do you regret
Mm.
about your life? Hmm?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Out of that came a top five. What is the number one, Anthony, that
Not
people
doing, not
regret?
regret. Yeah, not doing the things that they wanted to do.
Exactly, not living a life true to yourself.
Too tough. Yeah.
Yeah?
Mm.
Because in fitting in, you're living someone else's life. You're living the life
Mm.
of your boss, of your parents, of your teachers, of your spouse. Yeah? So you're constantly living the life what others expect you to do, but not your own. Hmm?
Mm. Mm.
Hmm? And unfortunately, that goes on till people die, and then they're in this hospice. And yeah, I would have left that I would be more true to myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is die before you die is like, at least for a short period of time, for any period of time, live your own life.
Yeah. And that is so important because you've got to be your authentic self. You've got to be truthful, true to yourself. And um, we've been we're we're on this earth for a reason, and it's up to us to take responsibility for ourselves. And like for me, I've spent 30 years in corporate world, been made redundant 4 times, and I chose to go back into my business because I don't want that regret. I don't want to be, 20, 30 years down, 40 years down, and lying in bed going, I wish I had done that. I wish I had followed my dream.
Absolutely, that is great. That is a super example of what I hope that most people will do. And it
Mm,
doesn't matter whether you're in your 20s, 30s, or 40s to start with it, or you're 85. At least some part of yourself, some time in your life, start living your own life.
yeah, yeah. Now, a lot of people would be fearful of pushing past their comfort zones, and because it's something that they're not used to. What would you say to those people who are like, well, I want to live my life, but what if I give up my job and I fail? What if I give up my job and and what are people going to say about me?
Failure is part of the process. Failure is part of the learning.
Mm,
Hmm?
mm,
So you never fail if you have tried. You
mm-hmm.
only learn. You
You
only
learn.
learn. Yeah?
Yeah, yeah,
You learn, and failure is more towards what would other people say? What would other people think? But failure is not like, I tried so many things and it didn't work out, but it's like, I didn't fail. I learned.
you did. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm?
And eventually, you're going to get to that one thing that's going to make you more successful.
Yeah, and it took me a really long time, I tell you. Yeah? But it doesn't matter, because everything builds up on the other thing. Yeah?
Yeah,
And
it
and
does.
and basically it takes courage, because anything new is hard. Because
Yeah.
when you start learning to bike, your first bike, it's not easy. When you learn how to drive a car, it's not easy. When you start horse riding, it's not easy. When the first time you have to bake an egg, it's like, yeah, it's all these things are not easy.
No.
But if you have courage and you continue and you keep on trying, then you become proficient at it, and it becomes more easy, and then it becomes a habit or part of your daily routine. But everything you need to learn. Yeah? There was no basketball player, football player, whatever, who was from the moment they're born, they were a top player. No, they put in many, many hours of training and rehearsing and whatever before they got there. I was just writing down. Have you heard about Stephen Pressfield?
No, no.
Well, highly recommend it. He's an author. He just the sentence I highlighted in his book. He at some point in time he wanted to be a writer, but he said it took 24 years before my first novel was published.
Wow.
He's now in his 80s and he's a very successful author. Another example, James Dyson. Have you heard about James Dyson?
Is he the man that created the Dyson vacuum cleaners?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
There's a beautiful book, which kind of a biography. Do you know how many prototypes he had before his vacuum cleaner was ready to sell? More than 5,000.
Wow. Yeah.
The guy's now a billionaire and he has a huge company. It's a family-owned company, whatever. But it's like he was sitting in his shed and working and trying and working and trying year after year after year. Yeah. So there is no failure. Failure is only, it's a failure if you don't try.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's self-perceived, right? It is something that we put up a barrier or a boundary because we're not used to, we haven't done it before. And so we put up these barriers in ourselves to move forward.
Yeah, that is what I call the resistance. Yeah, the resistance, like I cannot do it, I cannot try it. But you're learning to bike, you're learning to walk, where you even had to learn how to brush your own teeth. It's like all of these things took time, and all of these things were uncomfortable. Huh?
Exactly. Yeah, even tying your shoelaces, you probably had hundreds before times before you.
Yeah, but even like for me, I'm speaking English is not my native tongue. Yeah, so it like learning to speak in English and think whatever in the beginning is not easy. Yeah? Because I can still recall I worked at an American company and all of a sudden all the meetings, all the documents were in English. And what was happening in my head, I was translating. So what they said in English, I was translating it in my head in Dutch. Huh? And then when I say something, I thought it in Dutch, and then I was translating it. So I was exhausted after a day of meeting. Huh?
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
Because the meeting, which let's say was 8 hours, for me it was 16 hours because everything was doubled in my head. Huh?
Yeah.
Now, because I've done it for so long, I don't do the translation anymore.
No.
Sometimes there's a word which I don't know, but most of the time it stops. So it just direct. Yeah.
Because it's retained in your brain. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like it's just practice. It's just doing, and it's like that's why I said you didn't learn riding a car. Well, at least I'm not talking about the Americans with the automatic gear. But in Europe, you get manual gear. It's not easy. Eh? If you now drive a car, you don't even notice what you're doing.
Yeah. And so for someone to join your brain fitness training, how long would they? I mean, everyone is different, so you can't just say it's going to take X amount of weeks, right? But on average, how long do people work with you to
Now, what the trainings, Anthony, which I developed are a 15-week training program, where you have
Mm,
one session each week of 90
mm,
minutes. And then, of course, I invite you to do some work in between. Yeah.
mm,
After that, I hope that it becomes a habit in your life. Yeah? And you
mm,
create those daily rituals in your life, and you know how to do it. Yeah? So after that, it's not your brain is fit for the rest of your life and you don't need to do anything. No, you know what you can do, and whatever, and how it works.
mm,
Yeah, but it's the same thing for your body fitness. It's like, oh, I did go in 1 month. I did go 3 times to the gym, and now I don't need to go anymore. It's like, yeah.
mm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so it's just like body. You need to basically, preferably, move each day. Yeah, do
yeah,
something. Yeah, and that's the same for your brain fitness. But I enable you to do it. Yeah, that's what it is about.
yeah. And if people would like to be in contact with you or join your course, your training, how can they do so?
Well, the easiest way is to go to my website. It's called braingym.fitness. That they can even, well, they can sign up for. I have some video trainings, but also the training program itself. They can sign up for it. But even if they still have some question, my agenda link is there, so they can book an half an hour and we can have a chat.
Mm, mm. And I'll put those links into the podcast description so that people can um, be able to click on. Now we're heading into the quick fire questions. So there's 6 questions that I'm going to ask you. You can choose to answer those in a single word or a short sentence. And first question is: was there anything else before I go into those questions? Was there anything else that you wanted to share that we've missed?
No, not at the moment. Thank you.
No. Okay. So first question is: how do you define success, and has that definition changed for you over time?
Success is basically how many people you help.
Mm,
Did it change? Yes, because success used to be like, I need to get a promotion. I need to get higher up the hierarchy. Hmm?
mm, yeah. So what impact are you making in the world? How many people are you helping? Yeah.
Yeah. The world can be your family, your street, your
Yeah.
community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's your world. It's your
Yeah.
yeah, that's right. Who has been your greatest inspiration and why?
Leonardo da Vinci,
Why is that?
because he's a generalist, which
Mm,
I'm also, is that he's an engineer, he's a painter, he's a doctor, he's a naturalist. It's like he worked, yeah, he's an inventor. Yeah, so it's like he worked on so many different things.
mm, mm, yeah. What is something that you believe that others may disagree with?
Okay, I'm gonna answer it in a challenging way. I believe that we are currently living in a simulation.
Yeah. And why do you say that?
Because it is true. Because our world in which we live is so full of suffering and evil.
Mm,
And it's not only now, it's look 100 years ago, it's thousands of years ago. We've always had wars and famine and sickness and whatever. It's like that is not possible. That doesn't work like that. It like it should have been solved by now, all these things. And it looks like they're getting worse.
oh, it's been made into a business, isn't it? It's
It
wars.
is how the people who are enforced they're running the show is that they want us to be suffering because it's their fuel. It's something on which they thrive. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. And if you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Follow my heart.
Mm. Yes. Not your head, follow your heart.
Sorry.
Yeah. Not your head, follow your heart. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Get out of your head, get into your heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is one message that you'd like to share with the world?
Live your own life.
Mm. Very true. And the very last question is, what does it mean to you to be a champion in your life and have a champion mindset?
It's actually the same. It's like living my own life,
Mm.
not
Which then,
someone else.
no,
Huh?
which then allows you to become a champion in your life. Yeah, absolutely.
Because I'm unique.
Mm. Yeah.
So I'm a champion. I want to be a champion being Arnold Beekes.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Arnold Beekes, for sharing your story and also what you do and how you help people. It's I really believe that this is what you do is really important and important work, and I really do hope that lots of people see this and they start to um, live their life authentically for themselves instead of
Absolutely.
living for someone else. And the more we start looking internally and living for ourselves, the more we can have the freedom that we all want. We all want freedom in time and money and all other areas of our lives. And the only way we can get that is to be true to yourself and look after
And
yourself. Yeah.
kind to yourself.
And kind to yourself. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Um, I encourage anyone to, like, one of the things I do every day is get up and go for a walk to the beach and do walking meditation, or just stand in the sand and look at the sun and look at the ocean and be one with nature. And for me, that is one of the things that has really helped me through a lot of challenges in my life. And so I agree, brain fitness as well as physical fitness. So there you go. If you go for a walk, you can do both things at the same time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you,
Listen to
Arnold.
podcasts. That's actually what I do. I go for a walk and I listen to podcasts.
I do exactly the same. I
Mhm.
used to listen. I was a singer for years. I used to listen to lots of music. I very rarely listen to music anymore. If I'm at home, I will read a book or listen to a podcast. If I'm driving, I listen to podcasts. If I'm walking, I listen to a podcast. And I have certain podcasts that I listen to in the car and certain podcasts that I listen to when I'm walking, because it gives me the information and it gives me the knowledge that I want to help me at that given time, whatever's going on in my life. So encourage you, the audience, if you've been watching or listening to this episode, to not only with your body stay fit and move your body, but also move your mind as well, and be curious about what is happening in your own life. Don't worry about other people. Other people have their own lives to worry about, but I encourage you to worry about, not worry about it, but to be kind to yourself and focus on yourself. Thank you, Arnold, so much for joining us today on this podcast. It is a pleasure. And lastly, I just want to say to everyone, you are loved, you are worthy, champion your life, and champion your greatness. Have an amazing day.